When non-Muslim countries first explore the Islamic economy, what is the most common assumption you see and how is the reality different?
Now, the assumption was that Islamic banking will come with a solution, an intrinsically different solution, and it will give solutions for poverty. It will give solutions for ethical finance. But when it comes to the reality, as I always emphasize, the world that we live in is living in international standards, globalized world with international standards that are imposed upon countries, upon financial institutions in a globalized world. So these institutions have to abide by these standards, which at its core contradict with Sharia requirements. So we need to do something about it. We need to have dialogue with international bodies who are setting international standards to consider the special case of Islamic banking and the requirements of Sharia.
This answer will take us to the next questions with says that many governments start by looking at Islamic financial products. In your review, what structural or institutional factor actually determining long-term success?
Yeah. Okay. Why did governments consider Islamic banking? I think in the wake of 2008 crisis, the world realized that today's system is not safe, and it's not the optimum way of doing finance and between countries and internally in the countries. So they were looking for other solutions. Islamic academics, Islamic economy academics especially, they were always talking about a different system that will bring solutions that is more ethical, that does not exploit the need of the needy, and that will focus on the real economy, not making the rich richer and the poor poorer. But again, as I answered in the first question, we need to make sure that there is an infrastructure for this system. Any tool, any framework that in order to become successful needs a full ecosystem that supports it, from a legal point of view, from a regulation point of view, education point of view. So I think this is coming بإذن الله تعالى. The governments are looking at Islamic banking seriously today. But what I'm calling for is the real Islamic banking, not the way that we are seeing it is implemented today.
Through your work at Sibafi, you interact with diverse regulatory systems. What regulatory institutional gap do you see most often when a non-Muslim market begins evaluating Islamic economic activity?
The tools that are used for evaluation are conventional tools. Again, so we're saying that we are judging the Islamic economic system then based on conventional tools. We are trying to fit and introduce Islamic solutions in a system that is conventional and that contradicts with the Sharia requirements. So what we need to do, and Sibafi has to do, and other institutions similar to Sibafi like IOFI, like IFSB, and the regulators in the Islamic world, we need to speak and talk with the international bodies that set up international standards, and we need to tell them to consider our requirement, Sharia requirement. There is a lot of instances and examples today. And you look at Basel III. Basel III was introduced to make sure to safeguard the capital system and the banking system not to fall in time of crisis. But was it successful? We can see the instance of the Silicon Valley Bank, which was abiding by the Basel requirements, and still they failed to avoid the crisis. So what we claim is that there is a solution in Sharia if we really implement the soul of Sharia in the financial system that really considers the requirements of Sharia. Does that the banking system today as an infrastructure cater for these requirements? I don't think so. We need to relook how banks should operate from a Sharia point of view.
The summit highlights political support, legal clarity, and institutional readiness. In new markets, which of these three usually creates the first real push for the Islamic economy, and what typically triggers the push?
I think the most important factor is the will of the government, which is political basically. So if there is a government will, agendas will be pushed. Now there is a very strong force which is the demand of the population itself. If there is a awareness in the among the population and there is demand, I believe that this will put some pressure on the government to answer this demand, and they will do changes, and they can impose new regulations, new laws that promote an Islamic financial system.
Okay. Globally, which external forces such as technology, demographic shifts, or evolving regulations are creating the strongest pull for the Islamic economy in non Muslim regions?
I believe technology. Technology is the most important trend and power today because technology is making it possible for a small fintech to compete with banks. Legacy banks now are threatened by technology. Fintechs today are trying to offer products that are alternative for legacy banking products. So I think this is the major force today, and that we need to look at. And I think technology and the advancement in technology will make it easy for us to implement the requirements of Sharia in Islamic and non-Islamic countries, both.
So, do you think that emerging for a digital banks, Islamic digital banks, it will be a new trend or more popular in the next few years?
Of course, I think that digital banks now are the new comer that will replace the legacy banks, and I think it's an opportunity today, as long as the regulator supports them. It's an opportunity for these digital banks to offer real Islamic banking and real Islamic finance.
How do you envision Islamic economy in the non-Muslim countries in the next 5 years?
I think the first thing is to establish that the Islamic framework and the Sharia-compliant framework is a solution. So if we establish that and we agree and we acknowledge that this is a ground that we can start from talking together. Yani these non-Muslim countries, if they can bring Sharia experts and not just Sharia experts, Sharia finance and economic experts, because Sharia alone they cannot offer solutions. So these guys can come and based on Sharia offer solutions in economy and finance that will cover the needs of any country, any human being, any society. The whole thing of the financial services is to cover a need in a society. Need for finance, need for economy, need for merchants, need for establishing business. So how can we do this but in a way that is on the long run positively affecting the society, not negatively like what is happening today?
So, if young people, entrepreneurs, would like to start a business or investment with Sharia compliant businesses, what do you advise them?
I advise them to study and go back to Ayufi standards, Sharia standards, make them as their constitution to make sure that their business is compliant with Sharia. Try to hire a Sharia advisor who is well vetted in the field that they're working in, not just from a Sharia point of view. He has to be well aware on the business side and the finance side and the economic side. They themselves need to educate themselves, of course. And as I told you, there is the IOFI standards, the FSB standards. These standards will help them to navigate through this industry, and I think it is in their hand to make the change. These entrepreneurs, if they are committed to apply Sharia standards, which is basically ethical standards, should be. And I want to say something. If you see something that is called Sharia and it is not ethical, it is not Sharia. This is not true. So you have to know that this is sham and it's not Sharia. As long as it's not ethical, it's not Sharia, because Sharia and ethics are always together and does not contradict.